Tori's a trooper. Me in my total prepared way, Sunday night like, so, Tori? So thank you for sharing, and it's compelling to hear anybody share stories of growth that they've experienced through God's Word. But it's even more compelling when you know it's somebody who really had no background, no experience. Tori didn't grow up in the church or anything like that. And they're experiencing it, they're discovering that for themselves. So, that's the theme of this. Tori, thank you for that. And that's where we're going. We've done 3 weeks now of a different kind of series that we do here. More of like a how to read the Bible, this Bible Translate series. Next week, we're going to pick up and move into more of we're actually going to show you and walk through the book of Acts. We're going to go through Acts 2, chapter 2. 4 weeks of Acts chapter 2. This is the Pentecost. Some of you guys might be familiar with it. This is when the Holy Spirit was kind of unleashed on the people, on the Christians at that time. They were waiting for that after Jesus had risen. And so we're going to look at that very closely. We're going to kind of practice what we've been preaching, literally, the last 4 weeks. But today I'm going to kind of wrap up this last piece that we're looking at. And again, this isn't like some super high adrenaline, sexy series. So we're gonna go through this and just kind of, punch through this, and don't be afraid to laugh a little or get humored or, say, hey, what are you talking about? I'm okay with that. This is a conversation here. So, we talked about kind of first week. Step one was what? Huh? Read? Somebody say it?
Familiarization.
Yes, familiarization, reading, keep it simple. You can call it reading, right? Reading over and over and over, getting really, really familiar with the text. Kenzie talked about the 5 and 5. Read it 5 times in 5 days, right? Doing this over and over, getting super familiar. Step 2, this hermeneutics, that funny word, was the next week. And that we looked at, the first part of it was just purely how to, first of all, to identify, and then kind of how to identify the genre and the context, and how that should dictate how you interpret it a little bit. Last week, we kind of took the second part of this hermeneutics piece, and looked at, I didn't put it up there, good. This piece of how do you actually study the text, the words in there. Do you guys remember some of the phrases associated with that? There's 3 very kind of rhymey words to help you remember. Did you remember? Maybe? Did somebody take notes?
This feels like a test.
It is a test!
I didn't register for this class.
All right, since...
Inductive, deductive.
Good. Those are the 2 forms. Did you cheat or why?
Conclusion.
Yeah, analyze, what'd you say? Yep. Analyze, hypothesize, and summarize, right? So this is kind of that internal steps to, that first one, analyze, was that inductive piece. Get all the facts. What does the word say? Analyze it like crazy. The next step was to hypothesize, basically kind of work it backwards, come up with this is what I think this means, and go back through and cross-check it against the facts. And then, if you think that's right, you go to the last part, summarizing it, and try to break it down into one concise sentence. This is what this text means. That's what the piece is. So your assignment last week, if you've been working through this like a good student, all the way through, was to come up this week with your one sentence. I hope you did, because your small group leader is going to quiz you on that. If you didn't, please don't run. It won't be bad if you didn't. So, but kind of today, then, we're going to talk about this next step, which is contextualization. Contextualization, which essentially is how do we make this matter to us? What does it matter? Essentially, how does something that had several thousand years ago have any impact on us? And David Helm, he's an author. He has this great definition of it. I've got it up there. He says, it is reading the gospel message in ways that is understandable or appropriate to the reader's cultural context. In other words, contextualization is concerned with us and now. It is committed to relevance and application for today. So we're taking everything we've learned and making it relevant for us and now. This is the step of contextualization. And so as we look at this, this is the goal. This is what we're trying to do. I just read this thing forever. We've worked through this process. Now I want to figure out how it matters to me. Here's the thing is, this is what we usually do. I think I have the next, you got the next one up here. No, that's what was I going to do. Danger zone is coming. All right, so we'll talk about danger zone first because that's what I put up there. All right, so the danger zone is, this is how oftentimes we handle contextualization. We think, because he describes it here, I really like how he articulates this, this is the text over here. If you can find that picture, that'd be helpful. I think it's right.
Which picture?
It's like the first one of the pictures. The little, not like in like Jason. Yeah, that one. That one right there. All right. So you have the text. We just read the text, and you move immediately to, this is how it matters to us now. You move immediately there. So I just read this verse, and I immediately say, well, this is how it matters to me. And you think that's very like, oh, that's normal. That's actually what I should be doing, right? And I'm going to tell you what the danger zone in that is, all right? So there's a couple of things, but the major problem is this is something that the same David Helms calls the blind adherence problem. This meaning that oftentimes we can be so obsessed with figuring out our culture, our context, that we spend all our time studying and learning about our context and ignore what's actually happening in the text. And so you can see this actually happen, especially it actually is very common with preachers, where in the spirit of wanting to be interesting and relevant, they learn so much about what's actually relevant to us that they don't give the text itself due study. And so this is the overall problem. But a couple of the ways we can do this, and I want to mention a couple of them. One of them is called this idea of like an impressionistic reader. And so if you think about like the impressionist painters, right? They look at things, it's not really reality. You just kind of see some things and you pull some reality out of it. And we can do this in the Bible as well. We'll go through and we just kind of read through it, and in some kind of like super spiritual way, we're like, I think it means this, because that's what it feels like to me right now. Without giving it any kind of study, without even maybe knowing what village they're in, who the heck is talking, you're just like, I think it means this. I'm not saying you're wrong, but you're probably wrong. And so this is the part where we can become this like impressionistic reader, where we start exaggerating parts, we start ignoring parts that don't feel good, we start just taking that one doesn't sound like that, so I'm not going to do that one, but I like this little thing that I built here. That's kind of the impressionistic reader. It's actually pretty dangerous. You're not going to get a very complete biblical message doing that. Another one that I like the phrasing of it, because it's just funny to me, is called an inebriated reader. Yes. And here's the thing, is the inebriated reader does, this is a quote, this isn't my thing, but I love it, says, they use the Bible the way a drunk person uses a lamppost.
Yes.
More for support than illumination. Do you catch that? More for support than illumination. And this is what we can do with the Bible. It's like, so I have this idea. This is that deductive reasoning without doing the inductive first. I have this idea. Pretty sure I'm right because I'm always right. I'm going to go find some verses that confirm everything I know is true. And then magically you find them. You find them. In Psalms, there is a verse that says, there is no God. Do you know that? But right before it says, the fool says in his heart, there is no God. So you can literally find whatever you want in the Bible by ignoring the things that are inconvenient and just using it as the support method. Whereas the proper way to address this, the proper way to contextualize this, is actually to use a lamppost for what a lamppost does and illuminates. And so we should read the text, and we should actually engage it like we've been talking about super thoroughly, and figure out, not does this confirm everything I want it to, but to go into what we talked about last week, having an open mind, an open heart to this, and say, what does this text actually say? Then you can ask yourself, do I agree with this? Is this something I believe? And if you say no, you inevitably have to ask, there's three possibilities if you say no. The Bible is wrong, I am wrong, or we're both wrong. And I'm telling you, if you start going on the leg of the Bible is wrong, I don't know what you're doing here. Because if you think the Bible is wrong or could be wrong, you're not standing on a very firm foundation. You're just not. And I don't mean that to sound cruel or crass, but if you like this really fuzzy passage over here, but you're like, I don't think this one's actually real. This one, it just didn't get edited. That's all. Like, really, what are you standing on? And that's the question I ask you. So it should always come to this point of, I don't believe this, but I'm certain I'm wrong. Or I've interpreted this wrong in a wrong way. Or I just don't quite understand the context of what they're getting at. Or really, it's what I think it is. It doesn't align with my worldview, and my worldview needs adjusted. And that's the harder thing to come to terms with. Nobody wants to be told their worldview is wrong, fix it. People don't like that. This is why there's so much animosity out on social media. Just take a second and look and you'll find it. It's because people don't like to be told their worldview is wrong. Fortunately for us, because we believe the Bible is truth, even if we don't like it, at least we know it's truth. But what about people who don't really have a standard? What if it's just all kind of this sliding scale? That's a scary thought, because at the end of the day, what makes it right or wrong if you don't have any baseline for truth? Because it feels good? I don't know, maybe. But something that, we might accept right now might not be something you accept in 30 years. So where's truth? So anyways, that's kind of what I'm getting at. You don't want to get into these dangers of immediately jumping from going into, right from the text to contextualization. Right from the text to this is me, this is now, this is how it matters. There's actually a better road. So we're going to talk about that, the path to contextualization. And the first step is this. Flip that up there. Dave. So yeah, go to the next one. Instead of going sideways, we actually got to take the long way. And we go up. And this is that research piece. We just got to spend a lot of time learning the text, familiarizing ourselves with the text, using all those tools that are available to us. It's pretty incredible, the tools we have available to us. You think about, I mentioned it last week, but pre-Reformation Christianity, people were very uneducated, pre-printing press, Bibles were hard to come by. Really, anything written was hard to come by. It was even harder to find somebody who could read it. That was the situation then. That's a scary place to base your faith on. There's a lot of trust on the clergy at that point. We have this incredible thing where not only do we have just a crazy wealth of good resources, obviously there's some bad ones too, but we have a lot of great resources, and we're intelligent, and you can read, and you can figure all this stuff out on your own. So this is where we often take the shortcut, because it's work, because it's hard, because quite frankly, it'd be easier just to be the impressionistic reader and be like, oh, that feels good. And we don't want to take the time to research and figure out what did that author who wrote that through the Spirit of God intend to communicate. What was the purpose? And so we spend all this time researching, going towards the them and the them. What did it mean to them? What did it mean then? We have to know that as well as possible. Obviously, there's people who are going to know it better than you. There's people, it makes me sick actually. I'll be sitting in a lecture or something for my classes, and you get the really smarty pants professor, and he opens up and you see these weird things on the front of his Bible, and he's just reading it like normal, and it's actually like in Hebrew. And you're just like, no big deal, this is in Hebrew. Now, he doesn't say that, but I'm just thinking, what in the world? So, obviously the more education you get, the more ability you have to dive in deeper. But you don't need all that. You can get a piece of software like I have, and you touch the word, and it gives you all the different meanings in Greek or Hebrew or Aramaic. That's wonderful. Why learn language, really? But I'm saying there are resources like, people like me who don't know all that stuff that you can figure out on your own. So spend the time, do the hard work, figure out what did it mean to them, what did it mean then. That's the first thing. That's what we've talked about the first 3 weeks of this series. That's that path right there. That's what you did for 3 weeks. That's where you should spend the majority of your time. And then you go to the next step. This is the reflection period. This is the time you've done all the work, you've done all the research. Don't skip ahead too quickly. Take the time to pray. Take the time to meditate. Take the time away from people. Take the time in quiet. And actually sincerely pray and reflect. What the heck does this mean? What does it mean? Ask for clarity. Ask for God to give you wisdom on this. And ask questions. What does it mean in the grand scope of the Bible? Why does it matter? What does it matter in the story or the arc of redemption? Why does this passage matter? Connect it with the whole of the Bible. We've talked about this a little bit. How does it matter to Jesus? The Bible should point to Jesus. It does point to Jesus in everything we read. Now, you can take that too far. Jesus is everywhere in the Bible, but he's not like dressed up as some woman, in the street or something like that. It's not something weird. I'm just saying, it should naturally point to the story of Jesus. It should point to God's redemption through Jesus. And so you want to reflect on this. What does it mean? And you're going to find the true meaning of the passage in that. I'm going to back up a little bit because I skipped this part. But this leads me to where we can get to that point where we misinterpret, where we read things the way we want to, if we don't take that proper reflection time, if we don't do that research. And we can actually start misinterpreting things, especially during that reflection. What does it mean? And we start jumping the corner to go to contextualization too quick, to going to the me and the now too quickly. That's where we talked about the danger zone, right? And so I'm going to give you a few examples of this. I'm going to give you some examples, and I'm intending to ruffle your feathers a little bit here. Commonly misinterpreted verses. The first one I'm going to blip up there is Philippians 4:13. And that says, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. You guys have heard that verse, right? I can do all this through him who gives me strength. You know what I think of when I think of somebody who's quoted that verse? I think of the person who just the day before a big competition, he dislocates his hip. Freak accident. Dislocates his hip. I can do all this through him who strengthens me. He will give me first place. Right? This is kind of how we can tweak that verse. Here's the problem with that kind of interpretation. I'm not denying that we can do all things through Jesus. He has the ability to do anything through us. I'm just saying that's not necessarily meaning you're going to win the race or you're going to recover from that injury. What it means in this context, it was actually spoken by Paul to the church of Philippi, and they are under some pretty severe persecution. This was not a fun time to be a Christian. Nobody knew about it really. It was all new. Nobody really liked it. And so they're getting persecuted pretty hard. And Paul was calling them to be content in the situation, being content in the persecution. And they're basically saying, I can do all this through him who gives me strength. I can endure persecution or people that are coming down on making it difficult to follow the faith. It doesn't mean like you're going to have this like Superman potion where you're just like, boom, you do all things through strength me. And just, you got it. That's not what that means. Jesus can strengthen you. I'm not saying he can't, but I'm just saying that's not what that verse means. Another one. This is a good one. I'm sure you guys have used this one. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future.
Amen.
Yes. So this is in Jeremiah. And what's interesting about this is we take this and say, Jesus is going to bless me. Going to be rolling the dough, have a nice house, sweet little family, and he's going to bless me, I'm going to prosper. Again, this is not saying that he won't make you prosperous, but he's speaking very specifically to Israel. And he's speaking very specifically in a close context that he will in their time. But the thing about it is, it was fulfilled in about 70 years. And that was over. Now, is there hope in this? Absolutely. The hope is that God will fulfill his promises. And God is always faithful. But it doesn't mean he's going to make you rich. Or give you 17 babies like you always wanted, Tori. I did it. All right, so we're all friends here. Anyways. Next verse. This is a good one. You guys have definitely heard this one. For where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there I am with them. How many of you guys have heard or used that in prayer circles? Don't be shy. I've done it too. Come on. Right? You know what this was actually about?
No.
This was actually in the context of church discipline. There were people fighting, and basically he was saying, where 2 or more, when you're focused on Jesus in conflict, he will give you the supernatural peace to resolve this. Doesn't mean he's not with you if there's only one. No, it doesn't mean he's with you whether there's 1 or 1 million. That's just a thing. There's not like this magic number of 2 or 3. No. We need 2 more. Jesus won't come. That's not a thing. But, again, these are just little nuances. And I'm not saying you're an evil person if you use it wrong. We've all done it wrong. But I'm saying this is the danger zone. This is taking it and twisting it just slightly in a way that seems to make it feel nice. It's not bad, maybe not even necessarily wrong. It's just not what the text intended. All right, last one here. You're going to love this one. It's like I feel like, was it David Letterman used to do the countdown? Is that him? Yeah. Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. So here's the deal. There's a couple nuances here. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. This is a very specific message for very specific people. For those who love him. This is for followers of Christ. This isn't just for like everybody. This is a unique promise to his people. That's important. Here's the other thing, is in this passage, when he says, for the good of those who love him, here's the deal. We're not talking about a nice job, comfortable living. He's actually talking about sanctification. He's talking about taking all the bad crap in you and making it better. I don't know about you, but usually when God's taking like the bad crap out of me and making it good, it is the most uncomfortable thing in the world. It's not fun, usually. It's not, my definition of good and his is different. Unfortunately, I'm wrong. So this is the problem, is we can interpret that and be like, it's all good. Jesus loves me. I'm in his plan. Like, he's going to bless me. And we can interpret that wrong. And actually what he's getting at here is saying, you know what? He is going to do good for those who love him, but it might and probably will hurt a little. But you'll understand why, and you'll have treasure in heaven, and it'll make you the person that he wants you to be. Even if it means maybe not living with a lot in a third world country, living on 10 grand a year, serving somebody. That might mean what it is. That's not America's definition of good. But I'm just saying, this is God's definition of good. So we got to look at those critically. That's the danger zone. I could go on and on with those, quite honestly. My point in this, again, is to get you looking at what does it actually mean, not what I want it to mean. And in this, so we got to the reflection, we got from the research to the reflection, and ultimately it leads us to this landing point of relevance. Now we're finally in the zone where we're saying, how does this matter to us right now? How is this a relevant message to me? How does this historical event or story matter to us when it occurred thousands of years ago? How can this guy who is a Jew and lived in this temple worship era, how can I identify with this story? I'm not a Jew. I live in America. I live in 21st century technology. This is ultimately the question we're asking. And this is the key difference, because remember we shared that verse in the beginning, 1 Timothy 3:13, I believe it was, that God's word never comes back void. Right?
Is that in the right context?
What's that?
You got that in the right context?
I might. I don't know. I'll have to double check it. But this idea that just because it doesn't make sense to us right now, we don't know how it fits, it has word that has value. Remember we also talked about if it's there, it's important, because surely over the redemptive history from the beginning with Adam and Eve to now, well, really to the end of the canon of the Bible, if we look at the apostolic era, there's a lot of details they didn't put in, that didn't make the cut, so to speak. There's a lot they could have put in. So everything that's in there is very important. So we should be paying attention to that. And just because it doesn't make sense to us right now in our context, doesn't mean we ignore it. You know those lineages in the Old Testament? Like 3 chapters straight. And so begets so-and-so, and so begets so-and-so. How many of you guys skip those? It's a normal response, right? But it has value. It has significance. Lineage is very important to the Hebrew people. It has to do with authority. It has to do with, is this real or is it not? It's like, is it from Wikipedia or is it from a professor? You know, like that's the difference to them. That's why lineage was so important. And so we have to look at that. We don't necessarily need to know all the names. We need to understand the significance and where they're tracking those lineages to and through. So all those things. Anyways, this gets us to a point of saying, ultimately, what is the application? I've done all the research. I've done all the reflection. I'm trying to figure out how it's relevant. How does this change me today? How does this move me forward in my faith? Because ultimately, you can sit here and learn and learn and learn and learn and learn, and you can fill your brains with all kinds of stuff and never change if you don't actually apply any of it. And then if you do that, there's no value to the learning in the first place. There just isn't. I think it's awfully difficult to learn and not respond. But that sounds better. But this is the heart of this. Is you've got to get to that landing point. What does this mean for me, and how is it going to change me today and in the future and forever? So that's the last point. That's the application. And so now this is it. So you guys have synthesized this verse, this passage, hopefully. The next stop for you guys, what you need to do is spend that time in reflection. Maybe you've spent a lot of time in reflection already, and you need to get to this point. What and how does this matter for me right now? If you only pick 3 verses and you haven't expanded from there in the context yet, you probably need to back up. Otherwise, you're going to be one of those people that I just made fun of in those 4 verses. So figure out what everything is there, and then get back to that final piece. How does this matter to me? This is what it means in my life. This is how it's going to change my life. Do you remember, if you guys come to church on Sunday, the Bible mantra, you guys remember it? If you don't have your Bible, pretend and hold it up. This is my Bible, God's Word. If I read it and obey it, it will change my life. Right? Good. This is good. You guys are good. All right. So do that. It will change my life. That was the key point I was trying to emphasize. If it doesn't change your life, what the heck are you doing? What are you doing? You know, and I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just saying, like, there's lots of other things you could waste your time in if you're not changing anything. So, anyways, you guys are going to go to your groups. We're going to talk about this some more. Hopefully move in some steps in your Bible reading. And I'm going to pray to close. God, thank you for this time together. Thank you for just this journey through a critically important part of our faith. If we can't read your word, we can't know you. If we can't know you, we're not able to fully grasp and fully embrace and fully enjoy who you are, Lord. So God, I just pray that you continue to give us clarity and wisdom and discipline and patience in the way we read the Bible. I pray that you would give us this overwhelming desire to be in it, to know you. And God, I just pray for fruit. I pray that you would give us encouragement in our approach and our reading, and that would drive even more excitement and interest back towards you, back towards your word, God. I pray for these groups tonight. I pray that they'd be fun. I pray that they would be insightful, and I pray that you just continue to build and forge these friendships in these groups, God. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, if you don't have a group, you can come talk to me.